Welcome to Undercomplicating Stuff, where we, two psychologists and coaches with over 40 years of combined experience, share our insights to help undercomplicate important topics. A friendly reminder that the video is meant for conversational and entertainment purposes only. Please see the information section of this video for additional resources. I'm Julie Radico. I'm a psychologist, a coach, an author, and a speaker, and I'm here with Dr. Gedeon.
Hi, Stacey Gedeon. I'm a health psychologist and the founder and CEO of a healthcare consulting and professional coaching business.
What's a coaching hack for asking good questions? Part of coaching is that it really centers on asking lots of open-ended questions to help that client explore and bring up what is important to them, what they maybe haven't considered yet, how they want to approach a situation or try to solve a problem. And asking good open-ended questions is really key to helping that person have space, feel non-judged, to feel like they can be creative and let their thoughts just flow. And so I think my one answer that just kind of came out here as we start this conversation is asking open-ended questions. Like a good, hack for asking a question is trying to make sure it's open-ended. And what might that mean? So if you are having a conversation, say with a loved one, and you really want to know what they're thinking about this, make sure that you're forming your questions in a way that they're not being prompted to respond with a yes or a no. So if I say, "Oh, you liked that dinner, didn't you?" It's a closed-ended question where they're going to have to say yes or no unless they purposely choose to add on to that yes or no. I also led them a little bit there.
That's a great example. Another one I'm thinking of that involves both leading and closed-ended. Let's say you know somebody who is debating about taking a job and they made a decision and you don't know it yet. And you might say, well, you didn't take that job, did you?
Mm.
And so not only what you ask, but how you ask it and the tone can shut down a conversation quicker than anything. And being mindful that people can get easily defensive. When you start a question with why, why
Mm.
did you do that? Why didn't you do that? You may be coming from the place that you're just curious. You're trying to understand something, or maybe you're trying to figure out, okay, is this something I need to do? But when you hear that on the other end, it sounds accusatory and that you've not followed through on something or that what you did or didn't do was wrong. And it's really important to be aware of how you're asking questions. And you can even try this out in your day to day. So we do it all the time with coaching clients to take the sessions deeper, to get people to really think. And one of the ways we know we've asked a good question is when there's a pause. And they're really thoughtful because they haven't taken the time to really think through what question we are posing. Back to the social piece, though. Let's say it's a situation where you are being around a lot of family, or it may be a holiday or a social setting, and maybe you're dreading it. You're either tired or you're not particularly extroverted. There are a bunch of people you don't know. One thing you can practice is asking open-ended questions and seeing what happens.
A party is a great example of a time where you want to engage in conversations and you want to be curious. You want your genuine curiosity that is hopefully really genuinely non-judgmental to come across. So just like you're saying, if you're asking a loved one or somebody that you see at a party, "Oh, I heard you took a new job. Why'd you take that job?" Even if you're like kind and excited about it, that's gonna maybe come off in a way of, "Oh, I have to defend my choices here, and I thought we were just celebrating." But if maybe instead you considered, "Oh, I heard you took a new job. What were the things you were excited about?" Like same kind of thing, right? You're encouraging, you're curious, you're asking in an open-ended way that they're going to be able to tell you lots of stuff in a, "Yeah, I'm excited too. I took this new job." Making sure that we're not leading people into a closed-ended, judgmental kind of space is so key. one of the other things I'm mindful of as we talk about this is the language that we use, and whether we're saying you when we ask a question versus trying to use I and we language. So in that example of, I heard you took a new job, and hopefully it feels non-judgmental. Maybe I could consider asking it if I feel like it is going to come off in a judgmental way, in a way that puts it back on me. Hey, I'm really curious about the job. Tell me how it is. Right? People are going to understand what you're saying, but I didn't say you. I didn't put it back on the listener that they're like in a corner. So being really mindful of situations where you are dealing with a heavy topic or it's a serious conversation. So it's a loved one who you are talking to that you're like, oh, I really want you to get this medical checkup done. I'm worried for your health. Or you got into an argument the last time you talked and you're wanting to like make peace and figure out how you can communicate better. Like there's conversations we have all the time that are heavier, and really trying to be mindful to not come in with questions about, well, why did you do that? More of a, hey, I noticed last time we kind of really fell off in our conversation, and I'm hoping we could brainstorm to figure out what went wrong.
I love the inclusive nature of that and also the ownership that's represented in doing that. It also made me think of when you say something to someone, ask them a question, and they don't respond maybe in the way that you thought because you perhaps were thinking it wasn't going to make them defensive or it wasn't a big deal. Sometimes it can also be helpful to reflect and think, okay, if they said that to me in that way, how might I take it? And being mindful again of the curiosity, the non-judgmental. And this takes practice. This isn't something that everybody does from the get-go. We're so busy. There's so many things going on. We're trying to get to the answer as quickly as we can, and sometimes don't take time to listen and then ask follow-up questions that really deepen the conversation. So, for example, if I said, you had a good time on your trip, right? The person may say yes or no, and they may add something else versus, oh, I heard you went on a trip. I would love to hear what your thoughts were about it. And that just invites a deeper conversation that can then lead to other interesting conversations and not shut things down right away.
Adding on to that, as you're asking these open-ended questions of what and how in a curious, non-leading, non-judgmental way, being mindful too gives us signals back to that person that you're listening, that you're invested, that you want to hear more. So if Stacey is telling me about this vacation that she went on, I'm gonna maybe paraphrase some of what I heard or ask specific questions that use some of her, like the language that she's using to describe the trip. I'm gonna use that as I ask the next question. So, if she's telling me all about this wonderful meal she had, I might specifically use the exact words that she used to say, "Oh, I heard you say it was really like delicious and like fresh. Tell me more about that." Really helping that person feel heard can make them more receptive to keeping that conversation going, to being willing to continue to answer questions because they get that you're engaged and you're really listening. You're hearing what they're saying. You're not just taking in the words to think of what you want to say next. You're hearing what they're saying and really listening to learn more.
That's such an important point. We tend to listen to respond versus listening to understand. So not only are we missing half of what's being said because we're already formulating how we're going to respond, but the other person can then feel shut down or not heard, just as you said, because you've gone on to something else or barely maybe acknowledged any part of what they said. The paraphrasing back is such a helpful tool. And if you've been on the receiving end of that, where someone is really listening, you feel pretty special. You do feel like there's a connection. And we all know that we all like to talk about ourselves. And being able to do that in a way that's unencumbered and is encouraged by the other person who's also giving you feedback that I'm interested in what you have to say, please tell me more, is really a great experience for both parties.
Ask them about the meaning behind of what they're saying. If they say to you, you ask, "Oh, how's it going?" Good open-ended question, right? Sometimes people will say lots of information, or sometimes they'll be like, things are kind of annoying right now. Annoying? Tell me more about that. Like, ask them what they mean about a word that they've used, whether that's to genuinely help your understanding, because maybe they're using a phrase you don't know. Good thing to do. But also, what do they mean by annoying? That could be like, oh, I stubbed my toe and it sucked for 5 minutes. Or that could be like, I've been doing this huge project at work all on my own and it's taking so much time. Like, people define things in different ways where you'd be like, annoying, that's like terrible. But that's maybe not the word that they would use. So really asking these deeper questions to understand where they're coming from. Stacey, I'm really mindful as we talk about this. What do you do with somebody, especially like a loved one, might be a teenager, and you're giving out all the good open-ended questions? You're like, I am interested, I am curious, I am non-judgmental, I'm putting all these great what questions, and I'm using I and we, and I'm just smashing it. I'm doing all the right things, and I am getting one word answers.
In that instance, with an adolescent, I would say it's developmentally appropriate. And to not take that as a sign to not continue. And so perhaps you acknowledge that they're not in a very verbal mood, and that's okay, and not have that dissuade you from continuing to try to interact and learn more and let that person know. Basically, you're letting them know that you're interested in them above and beyond surface level things. And I do want to go back to your point, your example, when you said that you highlight almost the last word that someone says and phrase it as a question, because that's a real simple, easy hack.
Mm,
You used annoying, annoying, and
mm,
people will then talk more. I went to some event and I was so frightened. Frightened? So
mm.
that's something that even a novice can start with and reflect back to get deeper, deeper conversations. Do you have any suggestions for when you get the one word and we're kind of picking on adolescents? It could be anybody who doesn't like to talk. Um, Anything that you tend to do in those situations?
Sometimes we just need to roll with the resistance that where we're at and where we hope people meet us at, they're different. And so we're not going to force somebody to talk to us. We're not going to force somebody to want to engage in a conversation if they're not wanting to do so. And adolescents are they're living a hard time, right? We all remember if you are an adolescent, it's hard. And we remember that like middle school, high school, those years can be really fun at times and they can be really hard at times. So being the one to take on the responsibility as the question asker to say, like, okay, I hear that it's, maybe not the best time. I'm around anytime. And I would love for us to have a conversation and saying it in a way that's going to hit the ear of the listener in a non-judgmental way, in a non-guilt trippy kind of way. So you might say like, okay, like, yeah, I'm glad that today it sounds like was pretty okay. So I'm a scenario and I'm, thinking of is kid comes home from school and you're like, how was school? Fine. Anything exciting happen? No. Oh, okay. Learn anything fun? Stuff. What kind of stuff? School stuff. Okay. Like you're picking up the signals that they're not ready to have that conversation or they don't want to have that conversation. Things maybe are just fine or they want to go do something else, whatever it might be. Um, in that moment, not saying like, oh, something's terribly wrong. I have to fix it. I have to get all the information right now. I like recognizing, oh, this might be a time to roll with resistance and to try to leave that door open that I just want them to know I care and that if they want to come talk to me about anything, including how today was, I am all ears. So saying that in a way that feels true for you, again, in a non-judgmental, non-guilt trippy way, saying something like, well, it sounds like things are doing okay from school today. I'm gonna be around, so happy to chat more. Or, like, sounds like things were okay today. Let me know if there's anything I can help with or support you as you're doing your homework, like whatever you're going to bridge to. Or you might just say, like, oh, hey, I bought this cool new snack. It's in the kitchen. Like something that you're letting them know you care about them. You're still invested, but you're not going to like pressure them into answering your questions if they're not wanting to.
When I think about a takeaway, I think I want to encourage people to do another mini challenge of at your next family, holiday, work, other social gathering. Really push yourself to ask an open-ended question to maybe paraphrase what you heard to encourage more discussion, to listen, to understand. This is like a big ask I'm asking. One of these things. Um, and see how it goes. And see if you don't notice that maybe you enjoyed things a little bit more, maybe made a new connection, or you learned something that you didn't know before.
I love that. I think that's the perfect takeaway. Apply some of these strategies and be kind to yourself as you're practicing them. Practice again and again and again. As long as you're coming with good intent and you're expressing that, people are going to be pretty kind. They might, if you have like a relationship where you like rib each other and be like, oh, that came out silly. Like, okay, like lighthearted jesting, like, okay, but like give yourself grace to try and to practice. And the heart is that you really want to foster good open communication. So it's a beautiful takeaway. If this topic resonated with you, please share it with somebody that you care about. Please also like comment, like, subscribe, and you can message us on YouTube or our LinkedIn channels with suggestions of questions that you'd like us to discuss in future episodes.